In this world, every thought you have turns real. Sounds like a gift, right? In my first hour, it built me a slum I could not live in, a meal I could not eat, and a woman I could not keep. Let me back up. 1 minute I was at my desk on the 9th floor, stamping a water leak report. The next, I was face down in cold dirt that ran flat and gray to every edge of the sky. No buildings, no roads, no people, just bare ground, a low gray sky, and me, lying there in my office shoes with a stapler still riding in my shirt pocket. I was sure I was dreaming. My name is Kan Jun, 13 years at the city infrastructure desk. My whole life was other people broken pipes, late building permits, and angry calls about the smell near the storm drains. So I did what any tired man does. I stood, brushed the mud off my knees, and said the single dumbest sentence of my life out loud, to nobody. I just need somewhere to live. Anything, even a dump. The dirt in front of me shivered. Then it stood up. The ground rose and folded and snapped into hard shapes, the way nothing in the real world ever moves. I scrambled backward on my hands. Walls shoved up like crooked teeth, tin roofs slapped down, a whole leaning slum, a sagging alley, 10 shacks deep, thrown up in 4 seconds, already stinking of damp wood and old rust. And a number lit up behind my eyes, clear as a price tag, 100, and then 70. I felt the 30 drain out of me the way you feel blood leave a cut, cold and quick and gone for good. I sat down hard in the dirt. I would love to tell you I stayed calm. I run a drainage office. I have seen burst mains and flooded basements. I had never watched a whole block grow out of one sentence. So I went to look. The first door came off in my hand, hinges and all. The floor inside was wet mud. A window sat painted on the wall. No glass, no frame, just the idea of a window, nobody finished. My head built the picture of a home and skipped every part that holds one up. No foundation, no drain, no door that shut, 30 points spent, and not one wall I could stand behind. That was the rule, ugly and plain. I think the world builds. I think sloppy, the world builds garbage. And it takes its fee straight out of me either way, whether I can use the thing or not. Then my stomach growled. Of course it did. Wherever this gray place was, my gut had not gotten the memo, and a body that wants lunch does not care one bit that the sky looks all wrong. So I thought about food. Real food, hot rice, the soup my wife used to make on a slow Sunday. Give me a proper meal, I said to the empty air. Something hot, something like home used to be. The ground coughed up a table. On it sat a meal, and it looked perfect, glossy and warm and steaming, like a photo off the front of a delivery menu. For half a second, my mouth actually watered. Rice in a white dome, soup in a bowl, 3 side dishes lined up by color, prettier than anything I ever ate, and not one tool to eat with. No spoon, no chopsticks, the bowl welded to the wood. I clawed the rice up with my fingers. Cold clay. The soup was hard paint. The whole spread was a picture of a meal made by a man who knew how food looks and forgot how it actually feeds a person. 70 down to 55. 15 points for a lunch I could not chew. I laughed, and it came out wrong, more cough than laugh, far too loud in the silence. I shut it off and swallowed it. 13 years I stamped other men plans, always the same failure on my desk, a pretty drawing with no working part. Someone sketches a grand fountain and forgets the pipe that feeds it. And now, I was that someone. The clerk who spent his whole career catching other people's sloppy work had become the sloppiest planner alive, in a world that took every loose word like a signed contract. I tried once more, simpler. Bread, I said, just bread, plain, something I can bite into. I got a loaf the size of a chair, hard as a curb. My knuckle bounced off the crust and split the nail clean. 55 to 45. A slum I could not enter, bread I could not break, and that count bleeding lower with every lazy word out of my mouth. I clamped my jaw shut and made myself stop wishing. The quiet got to me before the hunger did. No traffic, no phones, no footsteps, but my own, just my breathing and a thin wind in a fake town I had grown by accident and could not use for anything. I sat in the crooked doorway and did the one thing you should never do alone and scared in a world that listens. I let my mind go to her. I did not even notice until it was too late. My wife, 10 years married, she used to fix my collar before work and tell me I spent all day on other men drains and forgot to feed myself dinner. She always knew when I had skipped a meal. She is not with me anymore. That is all I will say about it. Some doors you do not pry open in an empty field with a head full of wishes that come true. I knew that. I went and opened it anyway. I did not say a word this time. I did not have to. I just let myself want her back. hard, the way you want it at 2 in the morning when there is no one around to watch your whole face fall apart. The air in front of me bent, then a woman was standing there. Dark hair, a coat I half knew, breathing real breath, blinking up at the gray like she had just surfaced from the same bad dream as me. I said a name out loud, my wife name. The woman looked at me and frowned. "Who is that?" she said. "Why are you staring like I crawled out of a grave?" Her voice was wrong, close, but wrong. Not her voice, near it, but off, like a song hummed by someone who heard it once. The world had not given my wife back. It built a stranger out of the shape of missing her. That was somehow worse. And the count was screaming behind my eyes. 45 down to 10. She had cost me 35 points in one held breath. More than the slum, more than the food, more than the rest combined. "Where are we?" she asked. She wrapped her arms tight around herself. "Why is it so cold here? Why is there nothing at all?" I opened my mouth and found I had no answer that would not sound insane. I should have been scared of her. A grown person who climbs out of bare dirt should send a sane man running. Instead, I went to put my coat on her shoulders. Old habit, wrong woman, I did it. She told me her name was Ari. She said it slow, like reading it off something only she could see. Then she asked me mine, and that one simple question was the part that hurt the most. 10 points left. I knew I should stop. I knew it the way you know there is one stair left in the dark. But her lips were going gray, and she had started to shiver hard. So I did the stupid, human thing. I reached for one more wish, a blanket, a small fire, anything warm for her, just a little one. Surely a blanket is cheap, surely I had 10 points of mercy left. Nothing in this world was cheap. The count hit 0. Then it turned red and began to pulse, slow and heavy, like a siren in my teeth. I have built enough warning panels to know a fault light on sight. The ground let out a long sound, a breath held way too long and finally let go. Behind me the slum sagged on its posts. The painted table cracked straight down the center and sank back into the mud. Everything I made in the last hour started pulling down into the dirt, like the world calling in alone at once. Walls folding flat, roofs dropping, the bread, the table, the shacks, all of it. And then her edges went soft. Ari looked down at her own hands. They were thinning at the fingers, going pale and clear. She lifted her face to me, not angry, just scared, and so new to being alive. "What is happening to me?" she said, and her voice had already gone thin as paper. I grabbed for her hand and my fingers passed straight through it. "I am cold," she whispered. "Please, do not let me." That was it, gone, mid-word. The field lay flat and empty, like she had never once stood there asking me why the world was so cold. I was talking to bare dirt with my own hands still reaching out. I knelt where her feet had been, knees in the cold mud, stapler in my pocket, the slum gone, the food gone, her gone, faded out before I ever told her my own name. The count crawled back on its own, slow, 10, 30, 60. By the time my chest worked right again, it read 100, clean and full, like a debt wiped out that I would have given anything to still owe. I stayed down in the dirt a long time. Then I did the one thing I have ever been good at. I stopped wishing and started writing a spec in my head, line by line, the way I would for any job. The world had not punished me for dreaming, it punished me for being vague. Every point I burned went on a wish with no numbers. Build a home, make food, bring her back. No sizes, no function, no plan. At my desk, vague, never got approved. You do not write, build a bridge on a permit. You write the span, the load, the material, the drainage, the name of the man who maintains it after. Out here the world was the same kind of contractor, faster and meaner. It built any order I gave, exactly as sloppy as I gave it. Time to stop wishing like a kid and order like an engineer. So I tested it like a work ticket. I pictured one thing, exact, a wooden board, 2 meters long, a hand wide, 2 fingers thick, dry pine, flat, one job only, to stand on, up out of the mud. A board dropped at my feet, plain, straight, solid pine. The count ticked down by 1, not 30. Not 15, a single point for a thing that worked because I told it exactly what I meant. I waited for it to sag or melt or slump back to clay like the rest. It did not. An hour crept past and the board stayed aboard, holding my weight because I had told the world what it was for. I stood on my 2 meters of pine, up out of the muck, at the end of an empty world and almost grinned. Not because I was saved, because I finally had the rule. Detail is cheap, wishes are dear. And under the grief, I made a promise I had no right to make. If a careless thought could build her by accident, a careful one could bring her back on purpose. I just had to get good enough, fast enough. I was already drafting the next build when I heard it. Faint, off past the low gray rise to my left. Not the wind, not the blood moving in my own ears, something else out there. Voices. People. More than one of them, and arguing, the way only real tired people argue about real tired things like water and food and whose fault it all is. I was not the last man alive in this place. I picked up my board and tucked it under my arm. One office clerk, one plank of pine, 100 points to spend, and over that rise, the first other living souls in this world. I started walking. I got maybe half a mile toward the voices before I stopped cold and ran the numbers on myself. One plank of pine, 100 points, no water, no food, and the gray light already failing fast. You do not walk up to a crowd of starving strangers with empty hands. That is not a rescue. That is one more mouth for them to resent. I knew that much from the city desk. Show up with nothing, you are a beggar. Show up with water and a dry roof, you are a man worth hearing out. So before I met anyone, I needed a camp of my own to stand on. And the cold was the real clock. My breath smoked in front of me. Night, or whatever passed for it here, was dropping fast. No shelter by dark, and those people over the hill would not matter. I set the pine board down and almost laughed at it. One plank against a freezing night, but it was real mine, cut to spec. A real thing beats a wished one every time out here. So, out of pure habit, I did the dumb thing one more time. Tired, cold, not thinking. I muttered, "Just give me a shelter." And braced. The ground heaved up a crooked lopsided shack in 2 seconds. Same garbage as the first time. A door that opened onto a wall. A roof with a hole dead center, right over where a man would sleep. Gaps in the planks you could lose a fist in. 6 points gone for a joke, 94 left. I almost kicked it, then caught myself. Kicking my own bad work is a habit from the old job. I made myself look at why it failed instead. So I started small, to prove the rule again. Not a shelter, one thing, a knife. I pictured it down to the grain. A blade 1 hand long, single edge, carbon steel, a corded wood handle. It dropped into my palm warm and perfect, heavy where a knife should be heavy. The count moved by 2. 2 points for a tool I would use 100 times. The board was no fluke. The rule held. That was the whole game right there. The world did not charge for size. It charged for vagueness. A clear small thing was cheap, a fuzzy big wish, a fortune. Now I had a budget to plan around. Now the shelter, done right. Not a house. I did not have points for a house, and did not need one. I needed a module, the smallest box that keeps one body alive through a cold night. I drew it in my head like a permit. 4 walls, packed earth and timber, 2.5 meters square. 1 door, hinged, with a bar inside. I held every line of the spec steady. A sloped roof, not flat, so the rain I could smell coming would run off and not pool. 1 small vent up high, because a sealed box with a fire in it kills you in your sleep. Men die in shut rooms with charcoal every winter. I signed the safety notices myself, so I built one into the wall, a hand-sized vent, before I lit it. The dull detail that keeps you breathing. And a hearth. Nothing fancy. A stone-lined pit in the corner under the vent with a flat ledge to set a pot on. Somewhere to burn, somewhere to cook, the heat kept off the bare timber. I laid it all out, every piece with a job, and let the world read the order. The dirt pulled in, the walls rose straight this time, the roof set at a clean slope, the bar dropped true. I packed the floor flat by hand so it would not turn to mud under us. Then I laid the pine board across the doorway as a sill, up out of the wet. My first build here, finally with a real job to do. 18 points. The whole thing, 18. 94 down to 76. The first shack cost me 6 and was useless. This one cost 18 and would keep me alive. That gap is what detail buys. I stepped inside and barred the door behind me. It held. No wind through the planks. No hole over my head. For the first time since I fell into this place, I was standing somewhere that was mine. Then, water. A man with a roof and no water is just dying slower. And this part, I know, cold. You do not hand people water. You give them a source, a vessel, and a way to keep it clean. So, I did not wish for water. I built the thing that makes it. A clay cistern, waist high, sealed, raised off the wet ground. A lid on top, because open water breeds sickness. Read those reports too. Inside it, a filter bed I could draw blind. Coarse gravel at the bottom, sharp sand above it. A charcoal layer between them, the cheap miracle that pulls the foulness out and the smell with it. And a feed, a thin pipe drawing from the water in the rock below, trickling up through gravel and sand and char, out the spout clear, slow but clean. Slow I can live with. Clean is the point. 14 points for the cistern and the filter together, 76, down to 62. I cupped my hand under the spout and waited. A thin run of water came, cold and clear, no grit, no stink off it. I drank. Real water, the first since I landed here. It tasted like nothing, which is what clean water should taste like. Anyone who says good water has a flavor is selling you a bad pipe upstream. Food next, and this time I did not ask for a feast. I learned that with a chair-sized loaf. I specced one flatbread, real flour, real water, baked through, 4 points. It came out plain and warm. I ate half, and it was the best bad meal of my life. 62 to 58. A roof, clean water, bread in my fist. 2 hours back I had a slum I could not enter. Now I had a camp. I said the count out loud, the way I read a site log. 100 at the start, 58 now, a shelter, a knife, a water system, 1 meal, 42 points spent, everyone's still standing. And that is when the quiet found me again. A warm box, a full cup, no one to tell it worked. I had done the impossible alone, talking to a clay pot, so I let myself think about her. This time I told myself I would be smart. I had a rule now. Detail, specs. I would not lose her to vagueness twice. I would build her back right, the way I built the walls, measured and exact. So I drafted a person like a permit. Her height to the centimeter, the dark hair, the line of her jaw, the gray coat, the voice. Every measure I could pull from 1 hour of her, held steady. Something stood up out of the floor. It had her height, her hair, her coat down to the buttons, and it was wrong. So wrong my stomach turned over and I backed into the cold wall behind me. It did not breathe. The eyes were open and flat, fixed on nothing, like a mannequin in a dark shop window. The chest did not move. The hands hung dead. I had built her shape and raised a corpse. I will not tell you the sound I made. I killed the thought fast and it folded back into the dirt before I had to look longer. 6 points for the worst thing I ever made, 58 to 52. And I finally understood. A wall is a speck. A knife is a speck. A person is not. You cannot draft a soul off a measurement sheet. Whatever Ari was, she did not come from numbers. So I stopped engineering. I set the specs down, every line of them, and I did the thing from the field, the thing I had no rule for. I shut my eyes and reached for her. Not her height, her. The air bent. The cost hit before I saw her. A long, heavy pull, more than the walls and water and bread stacked together. Whatever she was, she cost the most of anything here. 52 down to 40. And then she was there, breathing, her chest moving, her eyes finding mine and going wide, not flat, not a mannequin, a person, blinking in the firelight, alive and confused, looking right at me. Ari. You, she said, and her voice cracked. You were in the empty place. We were cold, and then I was. She stopped. She turned her hands over, checking they were solid. They were. I checked mine the same. I tried to explain and botched it. I told her she vanished because I ran out of something, that I had to learn the rules first, and I was sorry it took 2 tries. None of it landed. How could it? I am Kan Jun, I said, because she had asked twice, and twice I let her go before answering. It felt like the least I owed her. She nodded slow, like the name was a fact she was filing somewhere safe. Then she did the thing that proved she was real. She did not thank me, or cry, or ask if she was a ghost. She looked around my little box and started asking questions I had not thought to ask. Where does the water go after we drink it? She said. You made a clean way in. Where's the way out? If the dirty water just sits under the floor, we are sleeping over a swamp by morning. I opened my mouth and shut it. She was right. I built the inflow like a proud engineer and forgot the drain. The one thing my whole old job was about. Water in, water out, or it rots you slow. Where do we sleep? She went on. You built 1 room. One of you, one of me. Tomorrow there may be more of those voices. Where do they sleep? What do they eat? What happens when your points run dry? And the cold, she said. You vent the smoke? Fine. But you store no fuel and no food. 1 bad night and we burn the door for heat and chew on air. A house is not walls, it is what keeps them running. I pulled a woman back from nothing, and inside 5 minutes she was running a site inspection on me. The old me would have bristled. The new me wrote it all down. Each question was a hole in my plan. She was right about the points too. 40 left, and I burned a whole day on a box for 2. I could not think a city into being. I would run dry at the first street. The ceiling on me sat low. For a second that scared me worse than the cold had. Then Ari crouched by the hearth, held her hands to the fire, and said, Quiet, it is warm in here. You made it warm. and the fear backed off a step. She did not say it like a compliment. She said it like she was surprised the world could hold one warm corner. I built a lot that day. That sentence was the first thing that felt like it counted. I did not have a clever answer for any of it, not yet, but I had something I did not have an hour ago, someone to ask the questions. The box felt less like a grave with two of us breathing in it. I got up to bar the door for the night, and that is when I heard them again. The voices, closer now, much closer than the hill where I first caught them, coming across the dark, and not quietly. More of them than before too. I could pick a man shouting, a child crying, the drag of people hauling everything they own, not a patrol, not a raid, worse, in a way, people, a whole lot of them. Headed straight for the one warm room in this world, mine. Ari came to my shoulder and looked out the gap in the door at the dark. "How many can your little house hold?" she asked me. I looked at my 2.5 meters of wall and did the math I did not want to do. 2, maybe 3, if they did not mind the floor, and the dark was bringing me a dozen, maybe more. Ari was watching my hand. I still had the door bar up and I had not dropped it into the bracket. A smarter man would have. Lock it, wait for dawn, let the dark sort the strangers out for me. But I had heard a child out there. And I spent a whole life being the man nobody opened a door for. I know how that ends. So I held the bar and did not lock it and waited for them to find my light. They came out of the dark in a clot, maybe 20 of them, and stopped dead when my open door threw light across the dirt. Nobody stepped up, nobody ran, they just stared at the warm gap. A big man pushed to the front, one hand out to hold the rest back, mud to the knees, a spear that was really a sharpened tent pole. He looked at my door like a baited trap. "Who builds a warm house out here and leaves the door open?" he said. His voice was wrecked from shouting. "Men who want something, so whatever you are selling, we are not buying." I did not blame him. A free gift is the oldest hook there is, and I have read the case files, so I did not argue. I stood with my hands empty and let him look as long as he liked. "My name is Kan Jun," I said. "That is clean water behind me, and a fire. I am not selling. I would rather you came in than froze 10 steps from a roof. That is the whole offer." The big man did not move. Behind him a child coughed, the deep wet kind that folds a body double. I knew that cough. I had buried someone who coughed like that. Every head in the group flinched at the sound. "That cough is why we keep walking," he said. "The last place that took us in put us to work and kept the food. We bury our dead, and we walk. So step aside, or use that spear." Ari came up beside me, hands where they could see them. "We have one room and not much," she said. "But the water is clean and nobody wants your food. Look, there are 2 of us. 2 of us, 20 of them. A scared group does math too, and the math said we could not rob them if we tried." The spear point dropped a few degrees, not down, just less up. A small girl behind him kept staring at the fire, not at the threat the grown ones saw, just at the warm light, the way Ari had. "Kids do not act out fear," she wanted in. "Let the children near the fire," the big man said at last. "Just the children, the rest wait out here and watch. You try anything, and I burn it down around you." "Fair," I said. The coughing child was his. He carried her in himself and set her by the hearth like she might shatter. A girl, maybe 7, gray in the face, shivering under a grown man coat. "This is Min Soo," he said, and her name cracked something he had kept shut all night. "I am Tae Min. If she dies here, your water does not save you." "Understood," I said. I crouched an arm length back and looked at her the way I used to read a fault. Cracked lips, skin pulled tight, a loose wet cough. She was not cursed, she was sick the boring way. "Bad water," I said half to myself. "Cold on top, no food for weeks." The last camp blamed a spirit in her chest. "It is not a spirit," I said. "It is the water you have all been drinking." I had signed 100 reports that ended like this girl. Dirty source, a whole camp drinking it, the small ones going first. It is not a mystery, it is a pipe nobody cleaned. "How do you know?" Tae Min said, not angry, grabbing, the way a drowning man grabs. "Because it was my job," I said. 13 years. "I cannot promise you anything, but I know the order to fix it. She needs 3 things, none of them magic. Clean water, slow, warmth that holds all night, food soft enough to keep down. Do that a few days, and the cough has nothing left to feed on." "A few days," he said, like I had asked for years. "We do not have days, we have tonight." "Then we start with tonight," I said. "Tonight is the part I can actually do something about." I checked my count. 40 had crept to 45 while I slept, the slow way it refilled. 45 points for 20 people and 1 dying girl. It was nothing, it would have to be enough. The scared me would have spent it all on a wall to hide behind, but a wall does not boil water or warm a child. Min-soo did not have a wall problem, she had a water problem. First, more clean water, faster, a second cistern beside the first, same filter, but a wider mouth so it ran quicker, 8 points, 45 to 37, 2 clean sources now, not one. Then a vessel to heat it, because cold water does not fight a cough. A heavy iron pot, broad, flat-bottomed for the hearth, with a lid, 6 points. A field kitchen is a pot, and a fire done right. I filled it, set it over the flame, dropped in a pinch of clean salt for 2 points. I have read the notes on the sick, salt and clean water bring a body back faster than any prayer. Then the cold. 20 people do not fit in my one box, so I did not build a hall. I built 4 more modules, small, packed earth, sloped roofs, vents, in a tight ring around the fire. 4 shelters at 5 points each, 20 points, the biggest spend of the night. 37 down toward 9, I felt the floor of my budget coming up fast. I kept going anyway. Blankets next. Plain wool, 1 spec copied 20 times, cheap once the world has the pattern, 3 points for the lot. Ari handed them out before they settled, 1 to every pair of shaking hands. And the drain. The thing Ari had nailed me on. I cut a sloped waste channel running downhill, away from the shelters and cisterns, to a covered pit, clear of the water. 2 points. Nobody cheered. Nobody cheers for the drain, but that channel is why this camp would not become the last one. Clean water in at the top, dirty water out the bottom. That is a town, not a grave. I logged it out for Ari, old habit. 2 cisterns, 1 pot, 4 shelters, 20 blankets, a drain, 45 down to 9. She nodded, then said the part I was dodging. Nothing left if tonight goes wrong. Right, I said. Nothing left. I was shaking a little from the spend, the way a long shift used to leave my hands. But there were warm rooms where 10 minutes back there was bare dirt. Taemin stood in the middle of it, turning slow, watching shelters he did not have to build go up around his people. He came ready to fight me for a corner. He had no slot for this. Let me be clear what this was. I was not being kind. Not only 20 healthy people who owe you beat any wall. You do not get hands from corpses, but the girl I did not want to lose. The water came to a roll. I ladled a cup, blew on it, cut the heat with a splash of cold until it was warm, not scalding. Then I held it out, not to Min-soo, to her father. Your hands, not mine. While I worked the water, Ari worked the people, better at it than me by a mile. I build things, she builds order out of a scared crowd. She did not let them sit and wait to be saved. You, she said, pointing at 2 strong women. The pot needs tending, and it does not tend itself. You 3, fuel, anything dry, by the hearth, not on it. You old man, you count heads and boots. They moved. A minute back they were a wall of fear at my door. Now they had jobs, and a person with a job has stopped panicking. The camp went from a huddle to a crew in 10 minutes. Why help like this? One woman asked her, not slowing her hands. Ari had no clean answer ready. She looked at me, then the pot. Because last night I was cold too, she said, and he made it warm. It was not a speech. It landed harder than one. She nodded and went back to the fire, and something in the group came loose, the way a knot loosens when you stop pulling. They ran their own camp now. Min-soo drinks slow, Ari told Tae-min, taking the cup and passing it back steadier. Small sips. If she gulps it, she brings it up. Make her wait between each one. Count to 20. He counted, out loud, rough, this big wrecked man counting to 20 over a tin cup like it was the only number left. Min-soo drank. Small sip, wait, small sip. The cough did not come. Ari moved on without making it a moment, already onto the blankets, the head count, who slept where. She does not stop to be thanked. She finds the next hole and stands in it. I was learning that. By the time the pot was half gone, every person had warm clean water in them, and a blanket on them, and a roof 3 steps off. 22 souls. I counted twice. Yesterday I had 1. Min-soo finished the cup, slow, the way Ari told her. Then she did the thing I will not forget. She stopped shaking, not all at once, just less, until her shoulders came down from her ears and stayed. She looked up and said, thin, but clear, it does not hurt to swallow now. Tae-min made a sound I have made myself, the sound a man makes when he had started letting go and gets told to stop. He did not thank me, he could not get it out. He put his head on his daughter blanket and shook, and Min-soo patted his hair like he was the child, and the camp pretended to look elsewhere. After that the camp was mine, though nobody said it aloud. Tae-min sat by my fire when his girl slept. Then he said, the witch wanted 3 goats for the spirit. You did it with a pot. A pot and a clean source, I said. The goats were always a scam. He almost smiled. The first one all night. Where did you learn it? Another life, I said, fixing water for people who never saw my face. He looked at the shelters, the steam, his sleeping girl. Whatever life that was, he said, it owed you better than it gave. Maybe, I said, but it taught me the one trick this place needed. Put me to work then, he said, standing. Not as a debt, as a man who would rather move than sit. My girl breathes because you dig drains. Show me where you dig next. I sent him to sleep and sat up with the fire and the count, because a man who runs dry at the wrong moment gets people killed. 9 points. I expected 15 by dawn, the usual slow drip. It did not crawl. By the time the sky went gray, the count read 56, 56, from 9, overnight, more than 6 times the climb I had ever seen it make in a single rest. I ran it 3 times, sure I had miscounted, the way you re-add a column that will not balance. 9 at the start, nothing built, no spend. 56 now. I hate when numbers do not close. I told myself I read it wrong before sleep. Tired men misread gauges. That had to be it. A bad reading at 9, an honest one at 56. I wrote it off as my own mistake, mostly. But some clerk part of me, the part that never trusts a number it cannot source, filed it away. Something paid into my account in the night, and it was not rest. I did not know what or who. Whatever it was, I would not argue with 56 points and a camp to keep alive. An hour back, I was broke at 9. Now I had room to work. The why could wait, the work could not. At first light the old man Ari had set to counting heads came to find me. He was not looking at me. He was looking at the ground by the second cistern, where the digging scraped down to bare stone. I followed his eyes. Cut into the rock under the mud, worn but deep, was a mark, a ring with 3 lines through it, like a wheel, like a brand. I had scraped across it and never looked. You should not have dug here, he whispered. This is Arcos ground. I did not know the name yet, but the way his hand shook told me I was going to learn it the hard way. The old man would not stop staring at the brand in the rock. 3 lines through a ring. I rubbed the mud off it, worn smooth, older than our camp. Arcos ground, he said again. Who are you? I asked. Not a refugee question. He had named that mark like a man who once drew it himself. They called me Ro, he said. I built zones for Arcos. 40 years of it. Then you know what this means, I said. He nodded at the brand like a grave. It means a man in clean boots comes, counts your roofs, and bills you for breathing on land you cannot pay for. That is how they hold the whole world, he said, not with armies, with water rights, housing permits, and the fear of the cold. You live where they let you drink what they sell, or you walk. I should have been scared. Mostly I was busy. More people had found our fire in the night, drawn by the smoke, and the word that this camp did not rob you. 30 now, and still trickling in. So I did the obvious thing. More mouths, more roofs. I lined up to spec another ring of shelters and started laying the first one in my head. That is when old Ro grabbed my arm. Stop, he said. Hard, for an old man. Not yet. You build another house there, and you have killed someone. You just will not know who for a month. Explain that, I said, slowly. He crouched and picked up a stick. You think like a man with a house, he said. 1 box, water in, smoke out, done. A house you can hold in 1 breath. A whole city, never. A city is not boxes, he said. It is what runs between them. He scratched my 5 shelters in the mud, then the cistern, uphill, then, downhill, my proud little waste pit. 3 dumb dots, he called them. Then he drew the next ring of houses I wanted, right across the slope between them. See it yet? He asked. I did. My stomach dropped the way it used to over a bad permit on my desk. The new houses sat between the clean water uphill and the waste below. Foot traffic would drag the filth straight back up into the source. I had very nearly poisoned my own well. That is why a city kills slow, he said. Every house looks fine alone. The death is in how they sit together. Water up here, waste down there, people carrying both on their feet. I saw a zone do it once, he said. Good houses, proud people. Nobody planned the gutters. 2 winters and a fever walked house to house down the lane. They blamed a curse. It was a slope. He said it without drama, the way you state a fact. That is what scared me. To him, a dead lane was bad planning, fixable. To me, it was 100 names in a report, the same trade, 40 years apart. I knew this. That was the worst part. 13 years signing off on flow and buffer zones. The moment I had real dirt and scared people, I forgot all of it and reached for more houses. So teach me the map, I said, and put the stick in his hand. He looked at me a moment. An old planner handed a student who meant it. Then he drew, and I shut up and learned. First the water, he said, highest ground, always, so nothing drains into it. He circled the cisterns, then the kitchen, close to the water, but not on top of it, then storage, dry and raised. Then the people, he said. In a band below the water, never above. And the waste, lowest of all, downwind, on a path that never crosses the path to the well. A gut and a throat, kept apart. And between all of it, one thing nobody calls a building, a street. He drew a line down the middle, wide enough for two loaded people to pass without stepping into a doorway. A street is not empty space, he said. It is the most important thing you will build, where the water cart runs, where the sick get carried, where fire does not jump because you left a gap. Forget the street, and your city strangles on itself. I sat in the cold dirt and felt like a first year again, in the best way. I had built objects. He was showing me a system. The same leap I made from a wish to a speck, one level up. Stop thinking house, start thinking flow. So we planned it together, on our knees, while the camp ate breakfast around us. Water at the high east, kitchen and store below it. One main street running west, downhill, housing in rows off the street, waste at the far low end, alone, a whole town, scratched in mud. I checked my count before I spent a point. 56, the number that had scared me by climbing in the night. Enough to build the bones if I was careful, not enough to be stupid twice. Ari crouched to watch, chin on her knees. Then she took the stick and moved the storehouse 2 hand widths. If the wind comes off the waste end like last night, she said, you want the store upwind. Ro went still. He looked at where she moved it, then at her. That is right, he said slowly. Exactly right. How did you know the night wind? She opened her mouth and closed it. A pause, too long. I just did, she said. It felt obvious. It was not obvious. I never told her the wind. She was inside with Min-soo when it shifted. Ro held her gaze a second too long. I caught it, she caught me catching it. We did not talk about it, but I filed it beside the number that would not close, in the drawer where I keep things that do not add up. Ari knew the wind. Ari knew the plan, like she had read it somewhere before me. I let it sit and started building to the map instead, not more houses, the bones first, the way Ro drew them. I cut the main street, packed and graded so water ran off it, not down it. 6 points, a street nobody would ever thank me for, same as the drain, the spine of the whole place. Then the storehouse, where Ari moved it, raised on stone feet off the wet slatted walls so the grain breathed. 8 points, a place to keep more than one day of food at last. Then a real sanitation zone at the low end, not just my one pit. Trench, cover, a second path that never crossed the water path. 5 points. Ro watched me and grunted, which from him meant approval. I logged it for Ari, old habit. Street 6, store 8, sanitation 5, frames 3. 22 points spent, 56 down to 34, the bones of a town for the cost of a single bad wish. And here is where it changed. I went to lay the housing row and Tai Min stepped in front of me. Not the points, he said. Save them. You cannot think this whole place into being alone. Your head is the bottleneck, he said, not your hands. He was right, and I hated it. So I tried it. I spec'd 4 bare frames, cheap, just posts and beams. 3 points the lot. Then I handed the rest to the camp. Pack the walls, lay the floors, hang the doors. Real work, real hands. They were clumsy, they argued. A wall went up crooked and had to come down. Tae Min ran the crew like he was born to it, which I suppose a foreman is. You, mud. You, beams. No, the flat side up, you are not building a boat. The man had found something to be besides afraid. By the 3rd house, they stopped arguing about the beams and started arguing about whose row was straighter. That is when I knew it was working. You cannot make people race over a thing they do not own. A worker dropped a beam on his own foot and said words Min-soo should not have heard. It took 3 times longer than if I had thought it whole. I did not care even a little. Because when the first house went up by their hands, they looked at it different. Not a gift I dropped on them in the dark. A thing they made. A woman put her palm on the wall and left it there. That wall was hers now. People do not defend what you give them, I thought. They defend what they built. I did not have the words for why it mattered yet. I just knew the crooked house meant more. By midday we had it. Not a city. I want to be honest about the scale. a graded street, a storehouse, a sanitation line, 2 water nodes uphill, a field kitchen, 1 row of ugly hand-built houses. Min Soo carried water to the crews, slow and careful, not spilling a drop, counting to 20 between cups like Ari taught her. A week ago, that girl could not swallow, now she ran the water line. Ari watched her go down the row and said, "Lo, only to me, she copies everything you build, make sure it is worth copying." It landed like a stone in my boot. The girl was learning the whole town by watching me. 40 souls. I counted at lunch. 18 more had wandered in since dawn and nobody turned them away. We had a plan with room in it now, instead of a panic with none. From one board, 4 days back. Min Soo was the one who named it. She had drawn our map again in the dirt, copying row, all the little squares and the long street. A man asked what it was. "This is our town," she said. "We thought it up." Thought it up. Somebody laughed, tired and warm. "Thought City then," he said. "Welcome to Thought City, population everyone freezing." It was a joke. It stuck the way jokes do when they are a little true. I did not love it. It sounded soft for a place on stolen background with no wall and 40 hungry mouths, but Ro told me to let it stand. A place people name is a place people stay for. "A camp runs," he said. "A town with a name digs in, let them dig," so I let it stand. Thought City. I was still turning the word over when Tae Min went quiet and put a hand on my arm. Different from his earlier grab. This one was a warning. He was looking east, past the new street, to the rise. A man sat a horse up there, against the gray sky, not coming closer. Clean coat, clean boots, even from here, a flat board across his saddle that he rode on, slow, the way I used to write up a site. He was not counting people, he was counting our plan. The whole camp felt him at once. Hammers slowed, a mother pulled her kid behind her leg. Nobody had to be told what a clean coat on a horse meant, they had all been moved off land before. I did not let it land on me where they could see. A foreman who flinches teaches the crew to flinch. The rider is only counting, I told them, and counting is not taking. The soup is getting cold. Back to work. He did not wave, he did not threaten. He looked a while, made one more mark, turned the horse, and rode back the way he came. Ro watched him go with a face like old stone. "Now it starts," he said. "They do not mind a camp of beggars," he said. "They mind this." He looked at the street, the store, the rows, the smoke. A camp dies on its own by winter. This does not. This stands. "This is people who learn to live without paying Arcos for the right," he said. "That is the one thing they cannot allow. He will be back, with a name and a price. Mark me, builder." I marked him. Then I looked at the rise where the rider sat, and at the warm, crooked street behind me, and did the only thing that ever steadies me. I picked up the next problem and got back to work. 3 days, and Thought City started to look like a word instead of a joke. 55 souls now, 2 rows of houses off the street, 1 good kitchen, smoke instead of 40 cold fires. People had stopped flinching at the fire. They argued about ordinary things now, whose turn at the pot, whose blanket. Ordinary is a kind of miracle when you have been burying your dead. A woman I did not know thanked me for the drain, of all things. "My boy stopped getting sick," she said. "That is the drain, not me, but I took it." Nobody had thanked me for a ditch in 2 lifetimes. I had 34 points and a list a mile long, a second street, a bathhouse, real walls before winter. I was deciding what came next when the horn started, low and flat, from the eastern rise. Not one rider this time, a column, wagons in clean canvas, a dozen guards in matched gray coats, short blades on their hips. Out front, a covered cart that carried a man who did not ride in the cold. The whole town stopped. Hammers down, mothers reaching for children. Ro came up beside me, and for the first time since I met him, the old man looked afraid. "That is him," he said. "That is Ray Volt." "Volt does not come for a camp," Ro said. "He sends a clerk for a camp. If Volt comes himself, he has already decided you are worth stepping on in person. Keep your hands open, and your mouth slow." The cart stopped at the head of my street. A guard set down a step, and Ray Volt came out of it like a man leaving an office, not a carriage. Pressed coat, soft boots, no mud on him anywhere. He was younger than I expected, and worse for it. No scars, no scowl, just a pleasant, busy face. The face of a man who fires people before lunch, and enjoys his lunch all the same. He did not shout. That was the first thing that scared me. Screaming I could have worked with. He smiled, looked around, and said, "Well, somebody has been industrious. Who do I thank for the trespass?" "That is me," I said. Kan Jun, I built it. These people live here. He turned the smile on me, friendly as a closing door. Built it, he said, like the word amused him. On Arcos land, without one permit. A man behind him opened a folio and read, flat and bored. Survey marker 41, unauthorized occupation, unlicensed groundwater, unpermitted structures, 19 counted. Each line, another brick. Volt walked my street like an inspector, hands behind his back. He stopped at the cistern first. Charming, he said. An unlicensed water node. Do you know what we do to unlicensed water nodes? We drink from it, I said. Clean. Tested. Nobody here sick anymore. He looked at me almost with pity. Clean is not the question, he said. Licensed is. Water is ours to grant. You are stealing it. He moved to the kitchen, where the pot steamed. And this, he said. Unregulated food, no inspection, 50 fed from one pot, one bad batch and they all die. And who do they blame? Arcos, for letting you. The houses are worse, he said. Self-built, no engineer of record. He toed the wall of the crooked one, a woman packed by hand. A child sleeps in there, I said. He shrugged. A child sleeps in a hazard then. Every word was a lie dressed as a rule. The water was cleaner than his. The food had healed a dying girl. But he did not need to be right. He held the paper that said what right was. I tried to answer in his own language. Show me the standard, I said. Turbidity, output, setback. I will meet your code on every node. He waved it off. There is no application for people like you. That is when I understood the game. He did not want my water fixed. He wanted it gone. A clean well I dug for free was more dangerous to him than a dirty one, because it proved his whole price was a lie. Then he turned to the people, gathered silent at the edges. He raised his voice just enough to carry. Look at this, he said, sweeping a hand at them. Not me. Look what washes up when nobody enforces the line. You are not settlers, he told them. You are debris, debt skippers, zone jumpers, people who could not make the arrangement everyone else makes. You do not get to squat on our ground and call it a town. I watched it land, shoulders curling, eyes dropping to the mud. These were people who had just barely started to stand straight again. In 4 sentences, he folded them back into what they were. That was the real cruelty, and it was deliberate. He did not come to argue with me. He came to remind them, in front of each other, that they were nothing without Arcos. He came to break the feeling first. Ari stepped up before I could stop her. She did not shout either. The water that healed his daughter, she said, nodding at a man in the crowd. Is the garbage you mean? Say that part again. Volt looked at her like a clerk finding an extra line on a form. And who licensed you to speak? He said. Nobody, she said. That is rather the point of this place. A few people almost smiled. He did not. Something in me wanted to make him stop. I had a power that turns thought to stone. For one hot second, I pictured a wall slamming up under his soft boots, a fist of rock around that smile. Then, I ran the numbers, the way I always do, and they said no. 34 points, 12 guards, 55 scared people, no walls, 1 street, swing first, and he levels the town and calls it law. And there was the other thing. I checked my count out of habit while he talked. It had dropped, 34 to 29, sitting there, building nothing. I had never once seen it fall on its own. It made no sense. I had spent nothing. But the more afraid the people got, the lower the number sank, like their fear drained the same well the work fills. I filed it next to the night it climbed. 2 halves of a rule I could not read yet. One night, gratitude, and it leapt. One morning, terror, and it bled. I did not have time to solve it, but I stopped thinking of my power as just mine. So I did not raise a wall. I kept my hands open, and my voice flat. Show me the actual survey, I said, not a clerk reading titles. If we trespass, I will read the law before I argue it. Volt studied me, recalculating. He came for a frightened squatter and found a man who asked for paperwork. You used to push paper, he said. Not a question. I did, I said. I know what a real claim looks like. That should have been a small win. It was not, because that is when his eyes left me, and found Min Su, at the waterline, cup in both hands, watching the gray coats like a rabbit watches dogs. Volt is many things. Slow is not one. He saw her father step in front of her, and read the whole shape of it in a breath. He walked over and crouched to her level, pleasant as ever. Hello, he said to her, gentle. You look warm. He stood and turned to Tae Min, voice still kind, which made it worse. Your girl was sick on the road, he said. Was she not? I can see where she has been. Tae Min said nothing. Volt did not need it. A slot is opening in the Eastgate zone, he said. heat, licensed water, a real clinic, a real roof, for a family of 3. A kindness, since I am told I have none. He let it sit, a family of 3, not 55. He was not offering to save the town, he was offering to save one man's child if that man walked away from the rest, the oldest cut there is. Tae-min looked at his daughter. Then, at me. Then at the street he had raised with his own hands. He did not answer, but I saw the offer go into him and stay, like a splinter you cannot reach. I marked it, I had to. A man with a sick child and a warm door dangled in front of him is not a traitor, he is a father, but Volt had just bought himself a crack in my town, and he had not spent a coin. Think on it, Volt said, and turned away, kind again. His poison left exactly where it would work. He never raised a hand, he just put a warm door in front of a frightened father and let him stare at it. While Volt performed, another man said nothing at all. He came on foot behind the wagons, plain dark clothes, no blade. While the guards watched the people, he watched the town. He was the one who scared me. He drifted down the street alone, touching things. He laid a hand on the storehouse post and pressed, feeling the load. He crouched at the cistern and read the flow, not the water. He read the town, like I do. He stopped in the middle of the street and stood there, head tilting, following the line of it downhill, tracing the spine, looking, I realized, for the one bone that, if you broke it, brought the rest down. Who is that? I asked Ro. The old man had gone pale. Zero, he said. Volt's Punisher architect. Volt breaks your spirit. Zero breaks the thing it stands on. He does not guess your weak point, he knows it. 40 years I built for them, Ro said. I trained half their planners, not him. They found Zero somewhere worse. He does not love the work, he loves the moment it fails. Watch his hands, not his face. I watched. Zero crouched once more, where the street met the cistern path, the exact spot Ro called the throat of the plan. He pressed 2 fingers to the ground, nodded to himself, and moved on. Volt climbed into his cart and gave the number, almost cheerful. 7 days, he called. Take down the node, the kitchen, the houses. On the 8th day, my crews come and clear what is left. 7 days. The whole town heard it. 55 people who had just learned to hope, handed a clock to nothing. My number ticked lower as the fear spread. 27 now, sinking while I stood still. The cart rolled, the guards fell in, but Zero did not move yet. He stood in my street a moment longer, then walked back to Volt, and said something I was close enough to catch, quiet, like a verdict. It holds on one head, he said. He pointed, without looking, straight at me. Take that head away, or wear it down, and the rest falls on its own. No siege needed, for now. Then they left. He was right, and that was the worst part. The town held on one head, mine. Every speck, every clean cup ran through me, and Zero saw it in 10 minutes. If I broke, it broke. He had found the bone. Ro watched the dust go. He will not attack the people first, he said. He will hit the water, the store, the street. Something they need, and you alone keep running. Break the thing, and the faith goes too. I stood in my street with the clock running, my number sinking on its own, a crew coming in 7 days, a father behind me staring at a warm door east. No wall, no army, just a problem. Eri came and stood at my shoulder, looking east where the dust still hung. He is good, she said. He found your weak spot before I would have, so fix it before he uses it. That is the whole job now, is it not? It was. Zero thought the town held on one head, and tonight he was right. The work of these 7 days was clear, even if I did not know how. Make him wrong, the town could not rest on me alone. So I did the only thing the problem allowed. I turned to the town, before Volt was out of sight, and told them our plan for 7 days. The clock did not care how I felt. Out loud, neither did I. First, nobody dismantles anything. Not one cup, not one wall. Ro, every weak joint by morning. Tae-min, food and fuel counted twice. We do not have 7 days to be afraid. We have them to get harder to kill. We had 5 days left on Volt's clock, and nobody in the town slept. They watched the eastern rise all night for gray coats and dust. I did not watch the rise, I watched the throat. That was the joint Zero had touched with 2 fingers, where my main street met the path down to the water. Ro had named it the throat of the whole plan, and Zero had agreed. Break it, Ro told me, and the cistern settles in the soft ground. The filter beds slump and mix together. Then the clean water you bled for turns to brown mud, so we guarded the spot. 2 men on the joint, all night, every night. Tae-min took the worst shift himself, and never once complained. I slept in pieces beside the cistern, one ear open, waiting for the sound of a shovel. For 2 nights, nothing came. No gray coats on the rise, no torches, no shouting, no crews, just cold wind and a whole town holding its breath, watching the wrong direction. I should have known better than to watch the gate. Zero does not come with torches. He does not come where your eyes already are. He comes under the floor, on the calm night, when you finally blink. On the third night the water went wrong with no attack at all, no noise, no struggle, nobody at the joint. Min Su drew the first cup at dawn, and it ran out of the spout brown. I was at the cistern in a breath. The spout coughed silt and spat grit. The clean, slow run I had bled points to build was gurgling thick mud. I tried the second cistern, the same. Both cisterns, both filters, fouled in the same dark hour, on the calmest night we had seen. That is not bad weather, and it is not bad luck. That is a man who knows exactly where to push. Ro and I dug along the throat by torchlight until we found it. A thin bore, no wider than a thumb, driven deep under the path. Sunk days ago, probably, while we stood guard on the surface like fools. Zero had not broken the joint where I could see him do it. He had gone under it. He let raw groundwater rise through his little bore and do the breaking for him, patient, clean, invisible. The unfiltered water pushed up under both cisterns from below. It lifted the gravel, shifted the sand, and folded the charcoal beds into each other. My filters were not destroyed, they were simply stirred into useless mud. And the bore ran downhill from the waistline. That was the cruelty of it. The dirty water and the clean water finally met underground. The one separation Ro had drilled into me, gone in a night. He did it with a stick and one quiet shift, I thought. No army, no fire, no wall knocked down. He read my whole plan, found the single thread that held it, and pulled. I had been beaten by a man who understood me. The whole town came down to look at the brown spout. 55 people stood in a ring around it, and nobody said a word. They had all seen water like this before, on the road, in the camps that did not make it. A woman dipped one finger, smelled it, and stepped back. Not away from the water, away from the town, away from the thing she had let herself trust 2 days ago. I watched her decide it had failed her. That was the real cut. Not the mud in the cup, the look on her face as she stepped back. She had let herself believe this place was different from every other place. Now she was not so sure, and it showed. It spread the way cold spreads through a house. One person stepped back, then 5, then a dozen. The hope went out of them in front of me. I could almost watch the warmth leave the crowd, person by person. Nobody said the enemy is too strong. Nobody cursed Zero or Volt at all. They just looked at me, and at the ruined spout, and went very quiet. That silence was worse than any shouting could have been. A town is a feeling before it is a wall. Volt taught me that without meaning to, the day he called them debris. Zero understood it too. He had not broken my water to make us thirsty. He broke it to break the feeling. So, I did the only thing I have ever known how to do. I knelt at the first cistern and started to spec the repair in my head. Seal the bore, repack the base, rebuild both filter beds, reset the feed above the waistline. I had the whole fix laid out, clean and certain. I reached for my points to begin, and the well inside me was nearly dry. 16. 2 days ago I had 27, and I had not spent a single point since. I had built nothing. I had wasted nothing. But every frightened face in that ring had been quietly pulling my number down all morning. It sat at 16 while I knelt there, lower than it had any right to be. I sealed the first bore anyway, because the work does not wait for me to understand it. 6 points. The seal held. Then, the number dropped past the spend, down to 8, as a man behind me groaned at the brown water. I did not understand it in that moment. I understand it now, writing it. Their fear was draining the very same well that their faith had filled. I was not running on stone. I was running on them, and they were terrified. The more they doubted, the less I could build. The less I could build, the more they doubted. I was trapped in my own loop, turning the wrong way, and every turn pulled me further down toward nothing. I tried to push through it on stubbornness alone. I started the second bore. 8 points, a simple seal, a thing I had done 20 times without thinking. Halfway in, my number hit 2, and my hands began to shake. The stone would not pull for me. The thought slipped in my head like a wet grip. The seal came out crooked and thin, and it leaked the moment I said it, right there in front of all of them. The builder who thought a whole town into being was fumbling a patch he could have done in his sleep a week ago. 2 points, then 1. I knelt in the mud over a half-sealed bore and could not close it, would not, could not. That was the lowest I have been since the empty field, and it was lower than the field. There, I only lost myself, alone, with nobody watching. Here, I had 55 people standing around me, watching me lose them in real time. Ari moved the others back from me. Give him room, she said, firm enough that they listened. But room was not the problem, and she knew it. The problem was standing in every doubting face in that ring, draining me dry. I knew the truth now, even if I could not yet prove it on paper. My power had never been only mine. The people were the fuel for it, and right now the fuel was scared half to death and leaking out of me. That is the moment the writer chose to come, not Volt himself, a clerk in a clean gray coat sent for precisely this hour. He had been waiting somewhere close, I realized, for the water to break and the spirit to follow. He did not gloat, and that was somehow worse than gloating. He read from a small card, gentle and rehearsed, like a man delivering bad news he had practiced. Arcos regrets the failure of the unlicensed node, he said. Such systems are not safe, he read on. Built without oversight, they fail without warning, and the poor pay the price. He looked at the brown spout the way a sad doctor looks at a wound. Every word of it was a knife, wearing a kind face. Eastgate has clean licensed water that never fails, he went on. There are a few slots left for families who choose to act today. He let that one word hang in the cold air, families, and his eyes went straight to Tae Min. It was the same cut as before, only deeper now and bleeding. The water you trusted turned to filth overnight. The man who built it is on his knees in the mud, so come to us, where you will be safe. It is a strong argument when your child is cold. I watched it land on them, one tired face at a time. 2 days ago, these same people had laughed and packed walls with their own hands. Now they looked at the mud, then east, toward Eastgate, and did the cold arithmetic of a scared parent. And then it got worse, the way it always does when you are already down. A child had drunk before the brown showed in the cup, before dawn, before anyone saw. One of the small ones had taken bad water straight from the spout. Not Min-soo this time, thank God. A boy, 4 years old, with a gap-toothed grin I had seen all week. But Min-soo had carried that water to him. She had filled his cup herself and counted to 20 between his sips, exactly as taught. By midday, the boy was hot and coughing, and it was the cough I knew. The deep, wet, folding cough I had buried someone for, once. Back in my own town, from my own water, the one thing I had promised these people was clean. Min-soo would not leave his side for anything. I gave him clean water, she kept saying, over and over. I counted to 20. I did everything you taught me, every single part of it. She was 7, and she was blaming herself for a man's sabotage. You did everything right, I told her, and meant it to my bones. This is not yours, Min-soo. This is mine, and it belongs to Zero. But she did not hear me. She had watched the cough come back, and that was all she could see. Tae Min stood in the doorway and watched his daughter take the weight of it onto her small shoulders. Then, he turned his head and looked east, toward Eastgate, toward the warm licensed water and the roof. Long, this time. I saw the splinter go all the way in. I clawed 8 points back by dark, crawling up slow, as the panic thinned a little, not enough to fix both nodes, not nearly enough to fix the fear that had broken them in the first place. The water was the easy part, it always is. The boy lived. I want to say that part plainly and clearly. We boiled the last clean water we had and pulled him through by morning, sweating and weak, but breathing. But the boy was never the real damage, and I knew it kneeling there. The damage was the look. 55 people had let themselves believe a poor man could build them something Arcos could not break. For one long night, standing around a brown spout, they stopped believing it. That is what Zero came to take. I sat alone by the broken throat, long past midnight, counting a number on the inside that would barely climb, listening to the small sounds of my town in the dark, deciding quietly, family by family, whether the morning was worth staying for. Ro came and sat down in the cold mud beside me. He did not soften it, because he never does, and I think that is why I trusted him. You see it now, he said, nodding at my empty hands. You see why he never needed an army to do this. You built it all for them, he said. Every cup, every wall, every clean drop, so it all runs through you, and only you. He did not break a town tonight, builder. He broke one man. He broke you, and the town nearly went down with you. He let that sit in the cold a while. Then he said the thing that turned the whole story over. A thing that one man alone holds, he said. One man alone can break. If you want it to stand, you have to make them hold it with you. I looked at the brown water, and the dark scared houses, and my own empty hands. For the first time since I landed in this world, I did not reach for a speck. I reached instead for the truth I had been dodging since the night my number first leapt for no reason at all. My limit sat at 8 and would not climb. I had sealed one bore and clawed back a few points by dark. Now the number simply stopped, like a dry well. Old Ro stayed in the cold mud beside me past midnight. He did not offer comfort. He pointed at my hands and asked one question: how many of these people can do what you just failed to do? None, I said. Not one of them can seal a bore. That is the whole problem, builder, he said. That is the trap. You made it so only your hands matter. I told him I had built all of it for them, every cup, every wall, every clean drop. He nodded, because that part was true. Then he said the thing I did not want to hear. You built it for them, he said. You never built it with them, so they watch you the way they watch weather. They wait to see if the sky will feed them. When the sky fails, he went on, you do not blame the rain, you simply stop trusting the sky. That woman this morning stopped trusting her whole sky. A city cannot stand on one head, he said. One head sleeps, one head doubts, one head gets found by a quiet man with a stick. Ciro proved that last night. I looked at the brown spout in the dark. He was right, and it sat heavy in me. I had made myself the throat of my own town. One cut had nearly drained the place. So what do? I asked. I am one man. I cannot teach 55 people to think things into being. He almost smiled. You are missing it, he said. You do not need them to build, he said. You need them to hold the plan, the reasons, the order of things. Then 55 people guard the water, not one tired man. The idea turned in me, slow and huge. My number did not move, but for once that night, I was not reaching for a speck. I was reaching for the people I had been carrying. At dawn, I did not fix the water first. That was the old reflex, and I let it die. Instead, I asked Taemin to bring everyone to the broken throat, all of them. They came slow and wary, 55 faces, some already half turned east. A week ago they had cheered me, now they watched me like a roof that had leaked once. I did not climb on anything. No crate, no wall, no high ground. Old Ro had warned me. The moment you stand above them, he said, you are the sky again. So I stood in the wet mud at their level. The brown spout sat behind me. I want to tell you the truth, I said. The truth I hid to look strong. I am not a miracle, I said. I am one man with a strange gift and a long stack of repair logs. Nobody spoke, so I made myself keep going. I built your water alone, I said. Your kitchen alone. Your houses alone. That felt generous to me. It was a mistake, and last night you paid for it. A man near the front asked the obvious thing. If you cannot protect it, he said, why should we stay? It was fair. I did not flinch from it. Because I built it wrong, I said, and I am about to build it right. I held up my hands, the same hands that had failed the second bore. These cannot be everywhere, I said. They cannot watch every joint at every hour. One man can be found, one man can be tired, one man breaks in a single night. A few faces shifted, not one over, just listening. Min-soo pushed to the front and sat down in the mud, ready, the way a child sits for a story. My limit ticked, 8 to 9, 1 point, for one honest sentence in front of 55 people. I almost missed it, but I felt it, small and warm. I marked the waste pit low and downwind, far from the path. I drew an arrow from the pit, away from the water, always away. This one rule keeps your children from the cough. So when the water turned brown, she said slowly, the two lines must have met. Yes, I said, underground. That is exactly the thing Ciro did to us. Understanding moved through them like warmth through a cold room. They were not looking at a failed man anymore. They saw a system with one broken rule, and a rule can be fixed. I drew the kitchen beside the storehouse, upwind of the waste. I drew the houses in their rows, then the throat, the joint that had failed, and I circled it twice. This is where it all nearly died, I said, so this is where the most eyes go. Old Ro watched from the edge, arms crossed, and gave me one short nod. By the time I finished, the mud held the whole city in simple marks. 55 people leaned in over it. For once since the spout ran brown, nobody was looking east. They were looking down at the plan, learning the bones of the place they lived. My limit read 14. It had climbed 5 points while I drew. I had specced nothing at all. Min-soo understood it first. She was 7, and she got there before the grown men did. She put one finger on the high cistern, then on the low waste pit. She was dead serious about the water that had made her boy sick. Then she did the thing I did not plan. She pulled 3 other children to the map. She took the stick from my hand, and she taught them, in her own words, the rule that had nearly killed a small boy. Water lives up here, she said, tapping the high mark. The bad water lives down there. If they ever touch, people cough. So we watch the lines. She made each child say it back. She counted to 20 on her fingers. I stood there with nothing to do. A child was running my water rule better than I had run it alone. The other parents drifted closer to listen. If their children could hold the rule, so could they. This was the shift old Ro meant. I had been the only teacher, the only builder, the only guard. Now, a 7-year-old was teaching. The rule lived in 4 more heads than it had an hour before. Minsu looked up at me, suddenly unsure. Did I do it right? She asked. The same words as yesterday, when she blamed herself for the cough. But her voice was different now. Yesterday, she had failed someone. Today, she had taught someone. You did it perfectly, I said, and this time she heard me. The cough was never your fault, Minsu. But this part is yours. You made the water safer than I could. She stood a little taller. Tae-min watched his daughter teach grown men a rule that kept her boy alive. The splinter volt pushed into him did not come out, but it stopped going deeper. My limit jumped, 14 to 30, 16 points at once. The moment Minsu made the rule her own, I felt it land in my chest, and the engine finally made sense to me. We rebuilt the water node together, and I did not touch the first stone. That was the hardest part for me. My hands wanted to do all of it, fast and right. I made them wait. Tae-min took the digging crew, 6 men, shovels, clearing the fouled beds down to clean ground. I told them why, not just what. Down to the hard layer, I said, or the new sand sinks. They dug to the hard layer. They knew the reason, so they did it right without me standing over them. The woman who had stepped back took the filter. I showed her the order once. Gravel at the bottom, then sand, then charcoal on top. She repeated it, then taught 2 women beside her. Old Rose sealed the second bore, the one I had failed. He let a young man named Pell help him do it. Watch my hands, Rose said. Next time you seal it, I watch yours. I did spec a few things, the parts only I could make. Fresh charcoal, clean and fast. A stone collar for the throat, to stop another bore from below. Small, precise, cheap. But the labor, the order, the watching, all of that was theirs now. My limit climbed all afternoon. Every time a hand learned a job, the number rose. It passed 100. By dusk the first cistern ran clear again. Minsu drew the first cup from the spout that ran brown at dawn. She held it up to the light. Clean, she announced, loud. The crowd did not cheer me. They cheered the water, and the hands that fixed it. Their own hands. Yesterday clean water had been my gift, and a gift can be taken. Today it was their work. You cannot steal a thing from a person who knows how to make it again. Tae-min stood by the clear spout with his boy and his daughter. He did not look east once that whole afternoon. The throat had a stone collar now, and the town held something stronger than a wall. 55 people who knew how it was built. By evening, I understood the whole of it. The thing I had felt for weeks and could not say. My limit had never run on me, it ran on them. I tested it the way I test everything. I stood by the clear cistern and said a true thing out loud. I cannot guard this water every night, I said. I need someone to own it. Not to thank me, to own it. For a moment nobody moved. Then Tae-min stepped forward. Not for me, for his children, his neighbors, the boy who had nearly died. I will hold the water, he said, the node, the throat, the rule. I will learn every part, and I will teach it. It is mine now. My limit did not tick. It leapt. 30 some to over 200 in one breath. I staggered where I stood. One man taking real weight moved my number more than a week of grateful smiles. That was the answer, plain as the mud map. Worship gave me almost nothing. Fear drained me to the bone. But a person who took a piece of the town into their hands fed the well. I counted heads while the number settled. The families who had packed were unpacking. Word had walked the road, and new faces came in from the dark. 45 active that morning. 70 by dark. I asked Tae-min to write the water rolls on a board. Who watches the throat, who packs the filter, who draws first cup and checks it clear. Names, not my name. He wrote them in charcoal, in his own hand. My limit settled at 410. From 8 that morning, I had specced almost nothing all day. 70 people had taken me from 8 to 400. We were one small town on borrowed ground, so I ran it forward in my head. The number it gave me did not feel possible. If 70 could do this, what could 2,000 do? If a whole city held the plan in its own head, my limit would not climb, it would run away from me. For once, I was not afraid of running dry. I was afraid of how big this could get. And Volt's clock still had 2 days left to run. 2 days before the deadline, I stopped building houses and started building rules. We had 70 people and 40 ideas of how to stack a wall. That was its own danger. So I made one plain house and called it the module. 1 room, 1 high window for air, 1 door from the wind. Build every house like this and anyone can fix any of them. Pell raised the first copy without me. He set the high window wrong, on the wind side. A neighbor fixed it before I saw it because she knew the rule. That was the point. I cut signs from board and burned marks in, a wavy line for water, a square for storehouse, a slash for waste, pointing away. Even a child who could not read knew where clean water lived. Then the alarm. 1 bell meant, come look. 2 meant fire. 3 fast meant gray coats on the rise. We drilled it in the cold until even the small ones moved without asking. We also dug a second water node on the far rise, the spare on Minsu's map. 1 water source had nearly killed us. I would not leave the town standing on a single spout again. I drew the evacuation line on the ground, like the water plan. Mothers and the sick up the spine first, then the workers. The gate holds last. Nobody argued, they had built it with me. The shift rolls went on the board beside the water names. Morning kitchen, day build, night watch. Each name owned a thing, not just a chore. I had learned that in the mud. My limit did not leap this time. It climbed steadily. Every hour a new hand learned a standard. 410 became 600 before the deadline even came. For once, the growth did not run through my hands. I was not making objects. I was making 70 people make fewer mistakes. The town was thinking without me, and the number loved it. Old Roe watched me hang the last sign and grunted. You stopped being the city, he said. Now you are only the man who drew it. From him, that was high praise. I looked at the boards, the bells, the line up the spine. None of it was clever, none of it needed me standing over it. That was why it would hold when Ciro pushed again. Not everyone trusted the way I made things. A new woman watched me think a water pipe into being and stepped back, pale. She had seen thought objects before, in worse hands. Ari handled it, not me. She sat with the woman and did not explain the mechanic. She just asked her to hold the pipe. It is only a pipe, Ari said. Cold, real, it carries water. That was Ari's gift. I made the strange thing. She made it ordinary. People feared a miracle, but nobody fears a pipe they can kick and lean on and complain about. She walked the rows each day. This door sticks. Fix the hinge. This is just wood. This is just stone. She never called my work a miracle. The word would scare them. I caught her alone by the cistern that night. Too quiet, she stared at her own hands. They make sense of the pipe, she said, because a pipe is simple, people are not. I asked what she meant. She did not answer straight. If they found a thing among them that looked like a person but was not born like one, would they still drink its water? I told her it was a strange question. She smiled, thin and tired, and let it go. I did not understand it then. I marked it, like a hairline crack, and went back to work. She was teaching the town not to fear what I made, and the whole time she feared what she was. I should have seen it. I was busy counting a number that would not stop. Still, her work showed in my limit. Every resident she calmed used the water instead of fearing it. Fear drained the well. She was sealing leaks I could not see. By the end of that week, the pale woman drew her own cup. She kicked the pipe once, the way Ari taught her, and laughed when it held. 600 became 740. A pipe you can kick is a pipe you trust. A man you must worship. You abandon the first cold night. Ari knew the difference before I did. I watched the number prove her right. Minsu drew the whole city from memory, and it changed everything. Not in mud this time, where rain washed it away. On a wide board, in charcoal, steady as a girl of 7 could make. She put the water high where it belonged, the waist low and far, the spine down the middle, the houses in rows. She even marked the throat and circled it twice, the way I had. I had drawn that plan a dozen times in mud. Hers was the first that did not wash away by morning. We hung it on the storehouse wall where everyone passed. People stopped asking me where things went. They walked to the board and pointed. New families read the city in one glance instead of a week of questions. A child's map taught faster than I had. Minsu added to it as we built. A new house, a new line, a small bell at each alarm post. She gave the backup water node its own square before I finished thinking it. That is the spare, she told a newcomer, tapping the second square. So if the first water breaks, we do not all stand around a brown spout again. She had been there. She made sure no one forgot. The map was not my plan on a wall. It was theirs, because a child they knew had drawn it. My limit crossed 1,000 the day we hung that board. I felt it go. Ari stood with me at the map that night. A city is a shared picture, she said, before it is a wall. I had heard the wall half from Old Roe. The gate needed one owner, and Tae Min asked for it himself. Not the water now, the gate and all that came through it. Food, newcomers, news, trouble, the most dangerous post in town. I gave it to him without a blink. He had held the water through our worst night. He had said the word mine when my number was nearly dead. There was no safer pair of hands. He built his own system. Every newcomer logged on a slate. Name, family, skill, day of arrival. Every cart counted in and out. The gate became a ledger, not a hole in the line. He set 2 on watch at all hours and taught them the 3-bell signal. He walked the supply path each dawn. He knew our days of grain better than I did. The man was built for this. I should have felt only pride. Mostly I did, but a clerk's part of me noted the truth I did not want. The man who holds the gate can also open it. The safest hands are the most dangerous. I pushed it down. This was Tae Min. His daughter ran my water line. His boy slept in a house I helped raise. If I could not trust him, I could not trust anyone. His slate count climbed. 71 became 80, then 90 as word spread down the road. People came because the town wrote your name down. My limit passed 1100. That night, Tae Min stood at the gate long after his shift, looking east, the way he had the day the clerk said the word families. I told myself it was a tired man watching the dark. I was wrong, and I know it now. The gate was the one place a man could let something in. The splinter Volt pushed into him had never come out. I gave that post to a bleeding man. On the 8th morning, an Arcos rider came to clear us, and stopped his horse cold. He had come expecting a camp, tents, mud, frightened debris, something crews could scrape off by noon. He found a town, straight streets with names on boards, a water sign, a storehouse sign, a child's map on a wall, smoke from a kitchen in shifts. He did not know what to write. Tae Min met him at the slate, calm, and logged his name and business, the way he logged everyone. The rider had come to erase us and found himself entered in a ledger. Then a thing I could not have staged. A water pipe cracked near the gate, in front of the rider. Before I could move, a young resident closed the line, pulled the bad section, set a spare. He did it from memory. He knew the standard. Clean stays high, pull the bad length, seat the spare, check it clear. The rider watched a nobody fix a city system without one word from me. The rider understood what Volt did not. You cannot clear a camp that stopped being a camp. You cannot scrape off people with names on a slate and a map they all can read. He turned and rode east without delivering one word of his order. It would not stop Volt. It would change his method. A man like that does not give up ground. He sends something heavier next. For one morning, the deadline came and broke against us. 8 days ago, we were a clerk and a sick child in a field. Now Volt's man could not find a place to start. My limit read 1200. I asked how you break a city that holds its own plan. Ro was quiet a moment. You do not break the plan, he said. You break the trust it is written on. Then he looked, once, toward the gate. We held the first shared dinner the night the town hit 100, not a feast. Every kitchen shift cooking at once, one long table down the spine, warm food for everyone with a name. It was half Min Su's idea. She said the boy who got sick should eat first, at the head, because he was why we boiled the water now, so a small boy sat there and grinned. Nobody gave a speech. I made sure. The old me would have stood on a crate and talked. Instead, I sat in the middle, between a digger and a kitchen woman, and passed the salt. Old Ro raised a cup at the long table and said one line. To the man who taught us not to need him, he said. The whole table laughed, and I did too, because it was true. The payoff was not a number. It was Tae Min's boy eating until his belly was round. The boy who coughed bad water a week ago. It was the pale woman laughing, Min Su running out of fingers. A pot ran low at the far end, and I reached on reflex to speck more. I did not have to. A kitchen woman moved the spare pot from the second fire, kept ready by standard. That was the whole city in one moment. A problem, a standard, a resident, a fix. No miracle, no June, no waiting on one tired head. We crossed 1,500 that night. I counted the town by the long table's light. 120 names, 45 houses on the map, 8 hectares inside the line, from a clerk and a dying girl, in 8 days. Then, Tae Min stepped away from the table. A runner had reached him at the gate in the dark and pressed something into his hand. He read it by torchlight, alone, and his face went still. I did not see the words that night. I know them now, because he kept the scrap. It was short, the way cruel things are short. Volt did not waste ink on a man he meant to buy. We know where your family will be safe, it said. Eastgate, warm, licensed, fed, a place held for the 3 of you. All you must do is show us the weak point. Tell us where the city breaks. Tae Min folded the scrap into his coat. He came back, sat, and passed the salt. He smiled at his daughter. He said nothing to me, while the warm food cooled and the splinter reached his heart. Tae-min did not sell us for money. I need that understood before I tell the rest. He sold us for a warm room and a fed child. That is so much harder to hate. He waited 3 nights with the scrap in his coat. I watched him not sleep. I thought it was the weight of the gate. It was the weight of a choice no father should be handed. His boy still coughed in the cold some nights. The licensed East Gate water never froze. Volt knew exactly which fear to buy, not greed, a father watching his son breathe wrong in the dark. On the 3rd night, he met a gray coat at the supply path. He did not open a gate or burn a wall. He gave them words instead, which are worse. He told them how the city truly worked. He gave them the guard rotation on the throat, the hour before dawn, when the night watch thinned. He gave them the new backup node, still untested, not yet trusted or defended by the town. And he gave them the storehouse. He told them the whole town ate from one roof. Break it, and 120 people go hungry in a day, no matter how clean the water ran. He did not do it laughing. He did it with his hands shaking, I am sure, the way mine shook over the boar. He wrote down our weak points for a man who would feed his son. Then he came back through his own gate. He logged himself in on his own slate and lay down beside his sleeping boy, a traitor and a father in one tired body, both true at once. I did not know yet. That is the cruelty of it. I slept well that night, proud of my 1200, while the map in my friend's head was already in Ciro's hands. The strike came before dawn, at the exact hour Tae-min had named. The watch was thin, the light was bad. Ciro did not waste a single move because he was not guessing this time. He did not touch the throat we had collared in stone. He went for the backup node, the spare on the far rise, the one thing the town had not yet learned to trust or to defend. Then, the storehouse. While we ran to the water, his people hit the roof we all ate from, not burned, just broken open and spoiled by the rain he knew was coming. A clerk's strike, not a soldier's. Min-soo stood at the dead spare node and did not cry. She looked at the second square on her map, the one she drew so proudly. The spare was meant to be safe, now it meant betrayed. By morning we had 1 water node instead of 2, and a storehouse half ruined, 120 people, and food for only a few days. Every blow had landed where only an insider could aim it. The town understood that part fast. This was not luck, and not a strong enemy at the wall. Someone inside had drawn Ciro a map. The word traitor moved through the rows before I could stop it. I felt my limit drop as the fear spread. 1200 slid toward 1000, then under, not from a broken node, from 120 people suddenly afraid of each other. I should have been hunting the leak. Instead, I was holding the town together with both hands, watching trust drain faster than any cistern. Ciro had hit the systems. Now, he came for the meaning. Ciro walked up to our broken gate in full daylight, alone and unarmed. He did not need a weapon. He had something that cut deeper, and he had been saving it for exactly this morning. He looked over the frightened crowd and found Ari at once. Then he said it plainly, for everyone to hear. That woman was never born, he said. Your builder made her. She is a thought, like his pipes. The crowd went still. Ciro kept going, gentle as the clerk had been. He reads structures, remember. He claimed he could feel it on her, the way you feel a wall thought into being instead of laid. Ask him, Ciro said, nodding at me. Ask your builder if he made her with his mind. He will not lie to your faces. He is too proud of his own work to ever call it nothing. 120 people turned to look at me, then at Ari, who had taught them not to fear my pipes, who had walked their rows and fixed their hinges and called everything just wood, just stone. I saw it work in real time. A woman near me stepped a little away from Ari. A man pulled his child back half a step. The trust that held the whole town was cracking down its middle. This was the real strike, not the node, not the storehouse. Ciro had found the load-bearing trust in the town and put 2 fingers on it. If Ari was a thought, then what here was real? He had aimed at meaning, the way he always aimed at nodes. Ari was the joint the whole spirit hung from, and he knew it. Breaker, and the town breaks without a wall ever falling. He did not even stay to watch it go. He had planted the question, and that was enough. He turned and walked back the way he came, leaving me before my people with no spec for this. I had no answer ready, and that had never once happened to me. I always have an answer, a number, a fix, a reason that makes the village feel smart. Now I had nothing. I opened my mouth to deny it. The denial would not come, because it would be a lie, and they would smell it. Ari was a thought. I made her my first night here, missing my wife. I opened my mouth to explain it, the way I explain water, but there was no clean diagram for this. No clean stays high, dirty stays low, just a woman I loved, who I had also made. The silence stretched, and the silence was its own answer. They watched me not deny it, and drew the only conclusion left. The builder made the woman. The builder might have made anything. Anyone. I saw the pale woman touch her own water pipe and flinch, as if it might vanish. I saw a man look at his own house, like it might come apart in his hands. The doubt was spreading to everything. Worse, I saw them start to doubt themselves. If a thought could walk and argue and love, how did each of them know they were not one too? It was a poison with no bottom. Old Roe caught my eye from the edge of the crowd. Even he had no plan on his face. The man who taught me a city, his connections had no diagram for a city that stopped believing its own parts. My limit fell off a cliff while I stood there mute. 1,000 became 800, then less. Their faith was my engine, and I had just failed to defend the one of us they trusted most. Ari watched me fail to find the words, and then she did the thing I could not. She stepped forward, in front of all of them, and she spoke for herself. "He is not wrong," Ari said. Her voice did not shake. "I was not born. Kan Jun made me our first night here, out of grief and the memory of someone he lost. That part is all true." The crowd flinched, but she did not stop. "What he did not tell you is that I have known longer than Jun has. I worked it out months ago. I am the one thing he made that thinks." She turned to me, not to them. "You wondered why I asked you that question by the cistern," she said. "About a thing that looked like a person but was not born. I was asking about myself." I remembered the night, her hands, her fear that if they knew, their faith would break. She had carried this alone the whole time she taught the town not to fear the very thing she was. "He did not make a tool," she told them. "He did not make a servant. Whatever the first thought was, it stopped being only his the day I started arguing with him, and I argue with him daily." That pulled one shaky laugh from the crowd, because they had all seen us argue. Real or not, she was the most stubborn person any of them had ever met. A thought does not talk back like that. "You are afraid I am not real," she said. "I have feared the same thing longer than any of you have. The difference is that I decided to stop letting it choose what I do." But she was not finished, and the next part was not for the crowd. It was the choice. She had been a secret long enough. Now she would say out loud what she wanted to be. "I could leave," Ari said. "I have thought about it. If I walk east tonight, your builder loses nothing he cannot rebuild, and you stop fearing the woman who fixes your doors." She let that sit. Then she shook her head, slow and certain. "But I will not go," she said. "Not because he made me, because I chose this town, the same as every one of you chose it." "I was a thought once," she said. "So was the water sign. So was the map your child redraws every week. You made them real by using them. I am only the loudest thing he ever started." She walked to the broken storehouse and picked up a fallen beam. She set it back herself, with her own hands, the way Ari fixed everything. "I stay," she said, "and I work. Judge me by that." It was the opposite of a thing. A thing does not choose. A thing does not lift a beam and decide to stay through a siege. She made herself a person in front of them by acting like one. The pale woman was the first to move. She stepped back to Ari's side and took the other end of the beam. "If you stay," she said quietly, "then I am not carrying this alone. Now lift." Minsu pushed through and stood by Ari too. "You fix my water," she said simply. "You are real to me." A child's logic, and it cut deeper than any argument I could ever spec. My limit stopped falling. It did not climb, not yet. But the cliff ended. Somewhere in the crowd, belief caught on the edge of her choosing and held on by its fingernails. I found my voice at last, and I said only one true thing. "She is the realest person I know," I told them. "I made a great many things. She is the one that made me." It did not fix it. I want to be honest about that. Ari's choice stopped the worst of the fall, but the question Ciro planted kept growing in the quiet corners of the town. If Ari was thought made real, what else was borrowed? Some looked at their houses and wondered. A few families packed that night, not from hunger now, but from a fear they could not name or fight. We dropped from 120 to 100 who stayed. My limit settled near 600, less than half of what it had been at the long warm table only 2 nights before. I found Tae Min by the gate at dawn. He did not run. He looked at me with his son's cough in his eyes and said one word: "Sorry." He did not say why. He did not have to. I did not strike him. I am not built that way, and the whole town was watching me decide. I just took the gate slate out of his hands. "You do not own the gate anymore," I said. That was the whole punishment, and it was worse than a blow. I gave him no enemy to push against, just the quiet weight of a man who had to keep living in the town he had sold. Tae Min's boy did not understand why his father sat apart now. Minsu still played with him. The children had not yet learned who to blame. That was the only mercy in the whole gray morning. Then the horns started in the east. Not a rider this time. not a clerk with a card. Ray Volt had heard our trust was cracked, and he had chosen this exact morning to come in full. He declared a full siege from the rise, his banners wide, his crews behind him. He was not here to clear a camp now, he was here to finish a city while it doubted itself. And I understood the shape of it. Walls could hold, water could hold, but Volt was not aiming at walls, he was aiming at the one thing stone cannot answer, whether any of this was real. Ray Volt did not charge the walls. I had braced for a storm. Instead, a slow hand closed around our throat, and he had all the time he needed. His crews took the roads first, the supply path, the eastern approach, the river track. By the second day nothing came in or out. He was not breaking the city, he was sealing it. Then the offer, carried on a horn, safe slots at Eastgate, warm rooms, licensed water, for any family that walked out and laid down whatever the builder had given them. He read names from a list he should not have had. Tae Min gave him those before he slipped out the broken gate and vanished. His last gift was a list of who to tempt. Walk out by the third dawn, the horn called, and your children sleep warm. Stay and share what happens to the thought that calls itself a town. He made staying sound like madness. I watched it land, a mother at the gate counting her children, a man weighing a cold house against a warm lie. Volt pressed every fear at once, and he was patient. My limits slid as the doubt spread, 600 to 5, then 4. Every wavering heart at that gate pulled the number down. I could feel the town thinking about leaving. Nobody walked out the first day, but nobody packed to fight either. They stood in their doorways and looked east, the way Tae Min used to. The siege was already working. Old Ro found me at the center of it. He does not attack the wall, Ro said. He makes you do it. Hunger and fear are his soldiers. He waits for the gate to open. On the second night, Zero came back and did not aim at people. He aimed at how the town knew itself. He had broken our water. Now he broke our eyes and our voice. He hit the gate first, not with fire. He wrecked the mechanism and burned the ledger slate, the record of every name inside. The gate stopped being a count and became a hole again. Then the signal posts. He cut the bell ropes and pulled down 2 alarm towers along the spine. The town that once shouted 3 strokes and moved as one went deaf in the dark. And then the map. He found Minsu's board on the storehouse wall and burned it in the open. Everyone watched the city's own face curl into ash. I felt that one like a death. The map was the thing that lived in all their heads at once. Burn the copy on the wall, and the copies inside start to blur. Minsu watched her city burn on a stick of charcoal and said nothing. She turned and drew it again, small, on a scrap. But a child cannot outrun a siege. By dawn we were blind and mute. No map to point at, no bell to gather by, no ledger to say who stayed. Each node worked, but nothing tied them together. That was Zero's real craft. He never broke the parts. He broke the things that made the parts a city. Water without a map, a gate without a count, people without a shared picture. My limit dropped under 300, not because a wall fell, because the town could no longer see itself whole. A town that cannot see itself stops believing it is one. The kitchen went quiet next, and hunger is a patient enemy. The storehouse was half ruined when Zero spoiled it. Under siege, with nothing coming in, the last grain went fast. The kitchen woman stretched 1 pot to feed 100. She watered the soup, then watered it again. She fed the children first, the workers last, and ate nothing herself. Minsu carried the thin bowls the way she once carried water. The boy who beat the cough got a full bowl, most got half. Food was running out under our feet. A man stood up at the empty kitchen and said it. The water holds, he said, and we starve beside it. At least Eastgate feeds you. No one argued him down. I could speck a single loaf, the way I had on my first nights here. I could not speck a harvest, not food enough for 100 mouths, day after day, with my number bleeding out. The kitchen woman caught my eye and shook her head once. 3 days, the look said, maybe 4 if the children keep eating half. She would not say it aloud. My limit kept sliding, 200 now, and falling. Hunger drains a town without even needing fear. Every empty bowl argued that the builder could not feed his own people. I saw the trap fully. Volt did not need to break the wall. He only had to wait at the edge of the road while we ran out of the one thing I could not make. The water was the one place we did not lose. And we kept it, because I was not the one holding it. The crew Tae Min once led, held the throat, without him. Arcos fouled the main node again on the 3rd day, a bore from below. But nobody waited for me. The water crew had the standard in their hands and in their heads. They sealed the bore, repacked the beds, reset the feed above the waist. Gravel, sand, charcoal, the order Minsu taught the children. The water came back clear in an afternoon. For one bright moment, belief flickered. The crew stood around the clean spout, filthy and proud. A few people cheered. My limit twitched up, 10 points, then 20. A woman named Selah led that crew now. She drew the first clean cup and held it high. We did this, she said, not the builder, us. The town remembered itself for a breath. But it was one node, one flash in one corner on one bad day. The water held, the kitchen still starved, the map was still ash. One clean spout could not feed 100. That was the shape of the siege. The parts held, the water crew held water, another crew held the gate gap. People kept a node alive. They could not see all the nodes at once. I watched Selah's small win fail to spread. The water crew believed. The kitchen despaired. The gate watch argued. Each held its piece and could not feel the others. No one carried the whole. My limit settled back down, the 20 points gone by nightfall. Local faith, I was learning, is not enough. A town can hold every separate thread and still come apart. On the fourth night, I almost became a different builder. I sat with the siege fires on the rise and let my mind do the forbidden thing. I designed a weapon. It came easily, and that frightened me. Precise thought makes a working object. A pot, a pipe, a wall. No reason it could not make a thing that threw fire down a road. I could see it finished. Volt's crews breaking and running. The road to the rise opened by force. The siege shattered in one night by the one mind that could think a weapon. My limit had enough for it, barely. I held the whole killing shape in my head, complete, waiting for the spend. One thought, and I would stop being a man who builds. Then I thought of the map curling into ash and what the town cheered at the clean spout, not a weapon, water. They cheered the thing that kept a child alive. If I won by fire, I would prove Volt right, that a thought town is just one dangerous man and his constructions, that the answer to a wall is only a bigger wall. I let the weapon go. I unmade it thought by thought until my hands were empty. It was the hardest thing I built that whole siege. The thing I chose not to build. Old Roe had watched my face do all of it. Good, he said quietly, though it cost him too. A weapon saves the bodies and kills the town. We keep a city, not win a fight. But choosing defense fed no one. It did not raise the map or open the road. I refused the fast answer and was left with the slow one I did not have. My limit read under 100. Through all of it, Ari did not hide. Half the town still flinched from her. She walked among them anyway, in full daylight, every single day. She did not argue that she was real. Arguing only feeds the doubt. Instead, she worked where they could see her, carrying water, stretching soup, setting a fallen beam back with her hands. A thing that is not real does not blister its hands on a water yoke, she told a man who would not look at her. Touch the blister, then. He did not, but he stopped backing away. She took the worst jobs on purpose. The night watch at the broken gate, the empty kitchen at dawn. The places fear made others avoid. She chose the town in plain sight. Some came back to her slowly. The pale woman never left her side. Selah's crew let her work the filter. A few children, led by Min Su, refused to fear her. It was not enough to lift the whole town, and she knew it, but every person who worked beside Ari stopped asking what else is not real. She sealed doubt one person at a time. I told her she did not have to carry this in the open. She looked at me like I had missed the whole point of her staying. If I hide, she said, then he was right. My limit did not climb for it, but it stopped falling so fast. Ari in the open was a small steady hand against the slide, and that was most of what we had. On the fifth morning, the watch saw something we did not expect. People, out past the siege lines, not Arcos gray, ragged figures on the far hills, drawn from the other zones. They had heard of us. The signal line, the rumors, the refugees we once saved and sent on, all of it had carried our name out into the dark zones. A town where the water is clean and your name gets written down, where a child draws the map and a poor man is not debris. By midday there were hundreds on the hills. And we could not let them in. Every face out there was a person I built the town to save. Opening the gate meant Arcos pouring in behind them, or all of us starving faster. Volt understood it before I did. He let them gather. He wanted them there. Every hungry face outside was pressure on the people inside. Hope itself became a weapon he turned on us. The people inside split again. Open the gate, some said. They are us. Open it, others said, and we all die by morning. Both were right, and that was the worst part. My limit hit 10. 10, from 1200 a week ago. I felt it like cold water down my back. The town held its separate threads with white knuckles, and no one carried the whole. So I went out to them with no plan, no spec, no number, no clever fix. I raised no banner, I just stood where they could see me, the builder with empty hands, and told the truth. I am afraid too, I said. I do not know if we hold. I built you water and a map, and I do not know if it was enough. The city was alive, but no one believed it would survive the next blow. I had told them I was afraid. Now I had to give them something better than fear, not a speech about belief. I had tried speeches before, they do not hold a wall. So I did the only thing I trust. I got specific. I did not ask them to believe in me. I asked them where the water was, a simple question, out loud, to the whole frightened crowd. The High East, Sella said, before she even thought about it. 2 cisterns, 1 collared throat. Right, I said. And the food. The storehouse, a woman answered. Half of it, but standing. Right again. I went down the list, like a repair log. Where do the sick go? Up the spine first. Who closes the gate? The night crew, on 3 strokes. Where do the children gather? By the second fire. Every answer came faster than the last. They were not guessing. They knew. The town had been holding all of it in pieces, and I was only asking the pieces to speak in one place. This was the opposite of a speech. A speech asks them to feel, I was asking them to remember, and a frightened person who remembers exactly what to do is no longer only frightened. I am not asking you to trust the builder, I said. I am asking you to trust the water you fixed, the gate you watch, the map you all carry. That is not me, that is you. My limit moved for the first time in a day. 10 became 15, then 20, not from worship, from 100 people remembering, all at once, that they already knew how their city worked. Then Minsu climbed onto the storehouse steps with her scrap of board, the small map she had been redrawing since Ciro burned the big one. She held it up over her head, for everyone. It was nothing supernatural, I want to be clear about that. A child lifting a piece of marked wood does not summon anything. What it did was simpler and far stronger. It reminded them. They had all read the big map for weeks, argued over it, planned on it, been proud of it, burned. It had started to blur in their heads, raised again, even small. It snapped back into focus. Water high, waist low, spine down the middle, the throat circled twice. People began to murmur it along with the lines, the way you finish a song you forgot you knew. I watched it move through them and felt the thing I had chased since the empty field, not belief in me, a shared picture, held by everyone, that no fire could ever fully burn. My limit jumped again, 20 to 50. A child with a scrap of board had done what my best speech never could. She gave them back the city they already had in their heads. Then Sella turned memory into a machine. She did not just point to her house, she named her job, loud, to everyone. I hold the water, she said, the throat and both cisterns. They are mine. It dropped into the crowd and rippled outward. A man beside her caught it. I hold the gate, he said, the night crew and the 3 strokes. Then another, I hold the storehouse. What is left of it is mine. They went around the crowd without me asking. I keep the kitchen woman said. I stretch the last of it and feed the children first. The wounded are mine, said an old man with bandaged hands. This was the difference from every bad night before. In the siege they had each fought a separate fire. Now they named the fires out loud, in one place, so everyone heard who held what. I keep the children, a young mother said, by the second fire away from the gate. I run the water line, said Minsu, small but clear. I check that the first cup is always clean. Piece by piece, the whole city said itself aloud. Water, gate, storehouse, kitchen, wounded, children, signals, each name a person, each person a node, each node finally connected to the next, out loud. I did not build that. I only asked the first question. They built it, by naming themselves, by hearing each other, by understanding for the first time that their piece touched every other piece. My limit climbed as they spoke. 50 became 100, then 2. Every named job fed the well, because a named job is a person who has decided to hold. The town was wiring itself together. Then a strange sound came over the wall from outside. The hundreds on the hills were saying it too, the same words. Water high, waist low. The plain, in voices that had never been inside our gate. I did not understand it at first. Then Ari did. They know it already, she said, from the signal line, from the refugees we saved and sent on. They learned our city before they ever saw it. It was the thing we built in the calm weeks, paying off in the worst hour. The map, the signs, the standards, all of it had walked out into the zones in the heads of people we helped. So the crowd outside was not a mob of strangers. They were people who already knew where the water went and why the waste stayed low. They could join the plan because they had carried it for miles. Open a safe passage, I told the gate crew. Not the gate, a passage. One we control, one the plan already has a place for. Let the ones who know the city come, hold their part of it. My limit did not creep now, it leapt. 200 to 500 as the outside voices joined the inside ones. The same plan, in thousands of heads, was a fire no enforcer could put out. I felt the limit grow in steps that night, and I will remember each one until I die. It did not pour in all at once. It climbed like a man taking stairs, one landing at a time. 10, when they remembered. 50, when Min Su raised the map. 500, when the outside voices joined the inside. Each step was a group of people deciding together that the city was theirs to hold. Then the safe passage opened, and the ones who knew the plan came in. They did not need teaching. They found the water line and the kitchen and the gate and simply took up a corner of the load. 500 became 3,000. I watched the number and could barely breathe, not because I had built 3,000 things, because 3,000 people now carried one city in one shared shape. This was the truth, proven all the way down. The limit was never mine. It was the measure of how many people held the plan in their own heads, and how surely they held it. Each step needed the one before it. Memory, then the map, then the naming, then the outside hands. You could not skip a stair. The faith was not a feeling, it was a structure, built in order. With that much behind me, I could finally build big. Not a weapon. I had buried that thought on the fourth night and I did not dig it up. I built the thing I am for. Shelter. I raised the walls first, but not as one line. A single cut could fail. I tied them to the spine, the gates, the safe passage, each part bracing the next. A wall that is also a system does not fall to one bore. Then, I closed the top, a dome over the heart of the city, thin and strong, thought into being with 3,000 people holding the why of it. Not to hide the town, to make it one sealed shape. I reinforced the gates until they were not holes but joints. I cut safe passages we opened and closed on the plan, never on panic. Every defense was a connection, not a barricade. None of it was new. It was every system we already had, finally tied to every other one. The water braced the kitchen braced the wounded, the map tied all of it into a single thing. And I did not build it alone, which was the whole point. I spec'd the shapes, they held the reasons. 2,000 people knew why each wall stood, so 2,000 people would keep each wall standing. My limit passed 5,000 as the dome closed. 200 buildings now, 50 hectares, one shape. It was no longer a camp or a thought, it was an idea too many people understood to break. Zero came for it, of course. He had broken every version of this town before. He walked the new walls in the gray dawn, reading them, looking for the one thread that held it all. The way he always did. He found the throat and saw it braced to the spine. He found the gate and saw it joined to the passage. He found the storehouse and saw it tied to the kitchen and the wounded and the wall. This time, his fingers had nowhere to push. Every node he reached for was held by a person who knew it, backed by a system that did not depend on it alone. Pull one thread, 10 others held. I watched him from the wall, and I saw the moment it broke in him, not in us. He had built his whole craft on one law. Everything stands on a single weak point. Find it, and the rest falls. But there was no single point anymore. No one head to break, no one map to burn, no one node to bore. The weakness he lived to find had been divided into 2,000 pairs of hands. He tried anyway. He fouled a cistern from below, his oldest trick. Sela's crew sealed it before the panic started, while another crew kept the second cistern flowing. The city did not even flinch. He stood alone at the foot of a wall that would not give him a seam. The man who broke cities by their weakest node had finally met a city with no weakest node at all. It was in that hour that Tae Min came back. He came up the safe passage with his wife and his boy, thin and gray, the cough still in the child's chest. He did not run, and he did not explain. He did not ask to be forgiven. He did not say the word sorry again. He had said it once and learned it was not worth much. Instead, he walked to the gate he used to hold and put his hands on it. The crew there went stiff. This was the man who sold them. He met their eyes and said only the true thing. I know this gate better than anyone alive. Let me help close it. Judge me after. I could have turned him away. The whole city watched to see if I would. But the gate needed a hand that knew its bones, and his were the hands that built it. I nodded once. Close it, I said. He closed it the way only he could, fast and sure, while Ciro's people tested the joint. His boy stood inside the dome, breathing easier air than Eastgate ever offered. The warm slot had been a lie. He did not become a hero. That is not how betrayal heals. But he took up his old corner of the load under the eyes of the people he had wronged, which is harder than running ever was. My limit did not punish his return. It rose. Even the traitor, holding his peace again, fed the well. The city was big enough now to take a broken man back and make him part of the shape. Ciro left at full light in front of everyone. He did not slink. He simply turned from a wall he could not read and walked back down the eastern road, past the people who had gathered to hold their city. They did not jeer him, that would have been a feeling, and we were past feelings now. They just watched him go, 2,000 of them, standing on a plan he could not break. The silence was the loudest answer. Ari stood beside me on the wall as he went, in full view, no longer a secret, no longer an error, a resident, a choice. The city had stopped asking what was real and started asking only what worked. My limit read 10,000 by the time he reached the rise, 10,000 from 10 the morning before. The whole arc of it, the empty field to this wall, fit inside one rising number I could finally explain. Down on the rise, Ray Volt sat in his carriage and listened to the report. I learned the words later, from a clerk who left him after that day. They were short, and they cost Ciro everything. We could not get in, the report said. There was no weak point. The director who called 100 people debris had been stopped by those same people, holding one plan with their own hands. For the first time, they said, Volt's cold face slipped. He had broken 100 towns by their one weak node. He had no method for a city that had none. The math he trusted had turned against him. He sat in the quiet a long moment. Then he gave the order that tells me this is not over. Prepare the second-level architects, he said, and the cold came back into his face, worse than before. The morning after the siege, nobody made a speech. They made breakfast. That is how I knew we had truly won. The fear was gone, and ordinary life came rushing back to fill the space. I woke to the sound of hammers. Not alarms, not horns. Hammers. People were already up on the walls, patching what Ciro had tested, arguing about the right way to seat a beam. Minsu chased the recovered boy between the houses, both of them laughing. The same boy who drank bad water a lifetime ago. Now he ran too fast for his mother to catch. Somebody complained the soup was thin. Somebody else complained the new houses faced the wrong way. I stood in the middle of it and grinned like a fool. Complaints. The luxury of a town that expects to live. A city is not a battle you win once. It is a breakfast you make again every morning. We had survived the night. Now we got to argue about chores, and that was the whole point. I sat with my ledger that morning and read the whole journey in numbers. I am a clerk. Numbers are how I pray, and these ones told a story I could barely believe I had lived. My limit had started at 100, the day I landed in an empty field with nothing. That morning it read 10,000, from 100 to 10,000, on the backs of people who chose to hold. Residents, from none to 2,000. The empty field now held more people than some of the safe zones Volt licensed. They had no names on any slate at first. Now the slate was a book. Buildings, from nothing to over 200, water nodes, kitchens, houses, the storehouse, the wall, the dome, each one a pain we had solved and a person it had helped. Territory, from a bare patch to 50 hectares of held and planned ground, not seized, not gifted, marked out, line by line, on a map a child first drew in the mud. They held an assembly that afternoon, and they did not invite me to run it. That, more than the 10,000, told me the city was real. It had business that did not need my hands. They gathered by the storehouse wall, under the spot where the burned map once hung. Minsu's new map, redrawn full size, hung there now. They had come to make a name real. The name was not new. It began as a joke, the day Minsu drew the map in the mud. Now a woman from the water crew said it without the grin. We all think this place into being, she said, so it is Thought City. The crowd took it up. Thought City, not because I named it, because they did. It was the name people used on the roads, the name the refugees had carried into the dark zones without my help. Old Roe leaned over and said it quietly. A place you name yourself is a place you do not leave. That is when you truly took this ground, builder, not when you built it, just now, when they claimed it. Then they tried to make me king, and I almost laughed. A man from the gate crew said it for the rest. The city is yours, builder. Lead us, take a title. We will follow you anywhere. But I had spent a year learning exactly why that was wrong. A city on one head breaks when the head breaks. Ciro taught me that with a thumb-wide bore and one quiet night. I am not a king, I told them. I held up my empty hands so they could see. I do not rule this place, I just think, and the whole hard-won point is that now we think. I pointed at Sela, who held the water, at the kitchen woman, who held the food, at Minsu, who held the map. They run this city, I said. I would only be a single weak point wearing a crown. Tae-min did not come to the assembly. He stayed at the gate, working, the way he had since he came back. He did not think he had the right to a voice yet. He may have been correct. I went to him after. We did not have a long talk about forgiveness. He had betrayed us, and a few clean sentences could not wash that out. We both knew it, so we did not pretend. Your boy looks better, I said. He does, Tae-min answered. The Mer helps the cough. That was the whole conversation about his son, the son he once sold us to save, now safe in the place he sold. I am not asking you to trust me, he said. I am asking you to let me work. I nodded. The gate is yours to watch, I told him. Not to own, watch. He understood the difference now. Some people would never sit easy beside him again. That was their right, and I did not order them to. The door was open. The guilt was not erased. Both of those things stayed true at once. That evening I found old Ro at the eastern wall, looking at something far away. I followed his eyes. On the distant horizon, past the hills, you could just make out the lights of an Arcos zone. His old zone. The one he had designed, years ago, before they cast him out. The clean licensed streets he built for Arcos, the work that taught him everything he later taught me. He did not say anything for a long time. I did not push him. Some grief is a structure too, and you do not go boring holes in it just to see what is inside. I built better there, he finally said. Straighter streets, stronger walls. He nodded at our patched, crooked, loud thought city behind us. But I never built anything there that named itself. That was all he said about it. He turned his back on the lights of his old perfect zone and walked down into our messy living one. A city that argues, he muttered, beats a city that obeys. Ari found me on the wall when the others had gone in. We stood a while and watched the dome catch the last light. I did not have words for the year, and I did not try to find them. I did make you, I said, by accident. On my first night, out of grief, missing someone I lost. You did not ask to exist. I have never known how to make that right. She shook her head, slow and certain, the way she does. You thought me by accident, she said. That part is true. But listen to the rest, because the rest is the part that matters. I stayed on purpose, she said. Every day after the first, I chose this. The town, the work, the arguing with you. You made a thought once. Everything after that, I made myself. I did not have a clever answer. For once, I did not need one. She was the realest thing I ever failed to take credit for, and she had just told me to stop trying, so I did. Later that night, I checked my limit out of old habit, and it had changed. I had not built a thing all day. I had argued, refused a crown, talked to Ari. I had specced nothing at all. It read 10,001. While I watched, it ticked to 10,002. I sat down on the cold stone, because I finally understood what I was seeing. It was growing without me. Somewhere down in the city, a man was teaching his neighbor to seat a beam. A child was redrawing a corner of the map. The water crew was training 2 new hands. Each one fed the well. That was the last proof, the one I had chased since the empty field. A thing that grows only when you push it is a tool. A thing that grows on its own is alive. I had not built a city. I had started one, then got out of its way. The number climbing in the dark was not mine anymore. It belonged to everyone who refused to stop believing in the work. I would like to end the story there, on a climbing number in the warm dark, but I promised to tell it true, and the truth had one more thing to show me before dawn. Near morning, the Eastern Watch rang the bell. Not 3 fast strokes, a slow, steady toll, the new signal we made for something none of us had a name for yet. Come look, be afraid. I climbed the wall in the gray light and looked east. On the far road, where Volt's carriage had sat, there was a line of dark Arcos machines, bigger than anything he had brought before. The second-level architects, I thought. Whatever those were. Men who did not hunt the weak point in a city perhaps, but who knew how to make a fresh one. The next problem, rolling in on the dawn. But I looked back at my city as the bell tolled. The water ran, the kitchen smoked. 2,000 people woke and took up their parts without waiting for me, and my limit ticked again, on its own. So they believe, I said out loud, even when I am not building. Then I turned east to meet whatever Arcos was sending, not as a king, and not alone.
Kan Jun began with a power that looked limitless. But the world punished every vague wish and every careless thought. A fake slum, useless food, and the first loss of Ari taught him that creation without structure is only another way to fail. His real victory was not learning how to build more things. It was learning that a city cannot live through one person alone. Thought City survived because its people learned the rules, held the water, protected the map, named their duties, and carried the same plan together. That is the lesson of this story. Real strength is not control. Real strength is building something clear enough, useful enough, and shared enough that it can keep growing even when you are not holding it. Kan Jun started as a lonely clerk with one board in the mud, but he became the spark of a living city because he stopped trying to be its only foundation. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like if you want to see how Thought City faces the